الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I wanted to mention something that I mentioned yesterday with regards to some of our rights towards the Quran that we have to observe, especially in the month of Ramadan, the month of the Quran. So it's by the will of Allah, it's easier to make these decisions in our life because it's a lifetime commitment to the Book of Allah, not just a month of Ramadan. But this can be the key and the start where the hearts are softer, where people would have this iqbal coming forward. Fasting helps with the salah, with listening to the Quran. So then it's part of repenting, even if a person doesn't think that it's a sinful thing, but to repent from how things used to be in our past when it comes to the Quran. And this is for each and every one of us, because it has to be constantly that we strengthen the relationship between the best thing in our life, which is the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran. So repeating some of the points here is, first of all, the misunderstanding of some when we read the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, that the manners of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was the Quran. As Aisha radiallahu anha, she was asked about his manners alayhi salatu wasalam. But the word khuluq is not only the manners that people would have towards one another. This is one aspect of manners. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had the best manners with others according to the Quran, the wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But al-khuluq is everything. Everything, whether it's aqidah, whether it's deeds done by the heart, speech, actions, every matter of one's life, the Prophet ﷺ, his khuluq was the Quran. And this khuluq, as they define it always, is the sajiyya. The sajiyya is the thing that doesn't change, not the once in a while type of things. That's not khuluq. Al khuluq is when the person is upon something for the entire life. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with eyes, nose like this. So this is how we're created. It doesn't change. So the same thing with the way that a Muslim conduct his life is according to the Quran. Once he learn, it doesn't change. And this is one of the very basic matters that we would learn from the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. One ayah would change their life forever, because this one ayah is going to be applied and they will have istiqamah on it till the end of their life. Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, they would hear it, even if it's a specific hadith to an individual, because he have an issue, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ addressed it for him. Like the hadith of Jabir ibn Abdullah, لا تسبن أحدا, do not say any bad words to anyone. He's saying that to him. So immediately after that, till he died, not even an animal that he would say a bad word to it. Immediate change, because they would receive this wahi, and both are wahi, the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, they receive it in their hearts, not in their ears. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in many verses in the Quran that many or some people, they listen to the ayat of Allah like the kuffar. They listen to it, but they don't have it comprehended in their hearts. And they have أعين لا يبصرون بها, they have eyes, they don't see with it. They have أذان لا يسمعون بها, they have ears, but they don't listen. Even though they listen to voices and things like this, and they understand what is being said, but it's not being in its function that it's supposed to be, where the ears and the eyes supposed to be passages to the heart, with the good things, with the wahi from Allah. The bad things, yes, this is a person where he has to have, if he had to hear something that is bad, he has to make that decision to block it, not to enter his heart. And that's why even the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about the fitan, تعرض الفتن كالحصير عودا عودا, that the fitan, trials, tribulations, and this is in the negative context of it, that means sins, things that can change and deviate the hearts, it's presented to the heart one straw after another, like the straw mat, one straw after the other. فَإِنَمَا قَلْبُ أُشْرِبَهَا نُكِتَتْ فِيهِ نُكْتَةٌ سَوْدَاء. Any heart that أُشْرِبَهَا, a shurb is when you drink something. And أُشْرِبَهَا here means like when a sponge poured in it something, then it becomes part of it. It's not something that is separated from it. So this is how the heart is. But the fitan is presented. Some people, they have it in the heart ushribaha. And this shirb, or this what happens to the heart, can happen either from the first instant. A fitna can destroy a person from the first instant if he is listening to it with his heart. His heart is yearning for it. He wants it. That destroy or causes diseases in the heart, deviation in the heart. That's why a person has to filter out things. Or even because the rest of the hadith, وَأَيُّ قَلْبٍ أَنْكَرَهَا. And if the heart أنكرها, that means he distanced himself from it. He knows that this is evil. He rejected it from his heart. He had to hear it. He had to see it. Sometimes the person just things happen. So his heart is refusing it, is repelling it. Then it will be a white dot in his heart. But here is that if it keeps on being presented to the heart, he ankara, and then al-inkar, or forbidding it from the heart, becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. So it can happen over time. So either the fitna hits from the first start, or if he ankaraha with his heart, it is good, but he keeps on presenting himself to it, exposing himself to the fitan, one fitna after the other, one speech after the other. The same doubts are being bombarded on his ears all the time. And this is how, even as some said, with the endless scrolling of things, these are fitan being presented to the hearts, one fitna after the other. And a person knowing that he's going to be exposed to fitan, and how can he allow himself to be exposed? And that means the heart can be corrupted. So the point here is that it's about listening and reciting and acting, but to use our senses the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to use it for. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala condemned the disbelievers because they don't use their eyes and their ears the way it's supposed to be, in which al-khair, the goodness, even khutbat al-jumu'ah, durus of al-ilm, anything, a person has to come to the masjid or listen to it with his heart open. And that's why it shows the importance of making sure that we don't listen to innovations in the deen, deviations in the deen. That's why even some of the salaf, when a mubtadi' or a deviant will come and wants to speak to him, he would do this. Even though he's a person of knowledge, he doesn't want to even hear it, because he doesn't want his heart. He trained himself that his heart is always accepting. So he doesn't want to allow himself to hear something that would affect his heart. So to be extremely careful. And that's why to know first how to seek the knowledge, and from who to seek the knowledge, from the people of Ahl Sunnah and things like this, and especially with matters of the Qur'an. Because as we heard the athar from Umar radiallahu anhu, when he asked Abdullah ibn Abbas after he's been contemplating over it, he says that how this ummah will deviate, how this ummah will differ and have a dispute with one another, when nabiyuha wahid wa kitabuha wahid, its prophet is one, and its book is one, and its qibla is one. There's no nation on the face of earth like this, have the same qibla, same prophet, the same book. No differences upon these matters of belief, pillars of al-Islam, pillars of al-Iman, for the majority of the ummah. But why there is still differences? Not the differences that was already like the type of differences at the time of the companions of the Allah anhu. This was okay. Fiqh differences, this is easy. They all loved each other for the sake of Allah. It was not a disputable differences. But when it comes to matters of aqidah, matters of understanding the deen, the manhaj of methodology of understanding the deen, this is a serious matter. And that's why they differ. And anything, even if it's in a valid differences of opinions, but it caused them to be in dispute with one another, that means they're doing something wrong. Because the valid differences of opinions is not supposed to cause them have enmity with each other, because this is something that is well established, and their goal is to follow the way the Prophet ﷺ. But the other matters, they distance themselves away from the ways of the companions radiallahu anhum. And as we mentioned before, differences of opinions of fiqh, because some people, they have this doubt that difference of opinions, also difference of opinions in aqidah, and be at ease with it. The differences of opinions in fiqh you would rarely find in any of the four madhahib, Imam Abi Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmad rahimahumullah, a statement or an opinion that is not, at least to their opinion, is traced to a sahabi, a companion, a tabi'i, something like this. Whether it's, even if it's weak narration or something, but this is the manhaj, this is the way that they adopted, and this is a valid one. This is the safe way to understand the deen, and these are A'imma in the deen. But when it comes to matters of Aqidah, you would never find a deviation that is attributed to a Sahabi, even a fabricated narration. It's all things that came later. So this is, by the way, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved this religion. So going back, I don't want to make this as a lecture. It's supposed to be only a few minutes. But when Umar radiallahu anhu said that, and I'm repeating what was mentioned yesterday, that he asked Abdullah ibn Abbas. And why specifically Abdullah ibn Abbas? Because he's the alim of the Qur'an. Habr al-Qur'an, Turjuman al-Qur'an. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua, and they knew this. That means Allah made them understood the Qur'an and the fiqh of the deen. Allahumma allimhu at-ta'wil wa faqihu fi din. So he asked him, Abdullah ibn Abbas, very young compared to Umar radiallahu anhu, who was the Khalifa Umar radiallahu anhu. Abdullah ibn Abbas, when the Prophet ﷺ died, he was almost in the age of puberty. But this is the importance of ilm and the level of ilm. So he asked him, so Abdullah ibn Abbas gave him the answer right away. And this is the barakah, the blessings of knowing the book of Allah according to the proper way. He said to him that inna unzil alayna al-Qur'an, when the Qur'an came to us, meaning the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, qara'nahu wa alimna fima unzil. We recited it and we knew why it was revealed, for what reason, what's the actions. They understood exactly what is the ayat of the Qur'an, understood it properly. And وَإِنَّهُ سَيَأْتِي أَقْوَامٌ, people will come after us, يَقْرَؤُونَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَا يَدْرُونَ فِيمَا أُنزِلَ. They will recite the Qur'an. So this is continuous thing, and this is a miraculous thing, as we said, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Qur'an is mahfuz. Love every word of it, every letter of it, and this is beyond human capacity. So the Ummah will continue to recite the Qur'an and to memorize the Qur'an and to hold fast to the Qur'an. But then the dangerous part is, but some of them, لا يدرون فيما أنزل. They don't know why these verses were revealed, meaning they would lack the knowledge of what the ayat to be applied and how to apply it in our life. So then he said, فإذا كان هذا الأمر, if this is the matter, then سيكون لهم فيها رأي. They will have to have an opinion, رأي, in the ayat. They will have to have an opinion because the book of Allah has to be applied. So with regardless of the intentions, they have sincere intentions and they want to apply the book of Allah, so they will have an opinion. فإذا كان لهم رأي اختلفوا. If they have opinions, they will differ among one another. That means what? That means there's no such a thing as رأي في القرآن. The Quran does not have opinions. Let's discuss what the verses means. And everybody can speak and talk about the Quran at ease. And that's why even the tafsir, there are tafsir bil-ra'y and tafsir bil-ma'thur. There are tafsir bil-ra'y, opinions. And there is tafsir bil-ma'thur. Al-ma'thur is the text that came. Quran explains the Quran. The Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ explains the Quran. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum making tafsir of the ayat, the tabi'een. And the last thing is the linguistics. So, and this is what a person is supposed to follow. The other ones, even though there are books of knowledge, but it's only a level for someone when he studies the tafsir first with the ma'thur, he understands the meaning. Tafsir is what? Tafsir is not the level of contemplating and tadabbur and benefits. No, it's the meanings that would apply in our life and our speech and actions and khuluq and manners. Then if a person with the level of knowledge that he reached, then if he gets the benefit, linguistic benefits, other benefits from the other tafsir, mashallah. And that's why you would find most of the tafsir bil-ra'i, the authors of these tafsir, either mu'tazilis or whatever, deviants. But there is still some benefits. I'm not saying that for people to read and to go to read. The ulama warned against it. But it's there for a level of knowledge if a person first study or finish this. So again, going back to the point here is, فَإِذَا اخْتَلَفُوا اقْتَتَلُوا. He even said if they differ among themselves, then it can lead them to fight with each other. And this is the reality that we live and we see. So what's the duty here is that we, alhamdulillah, we recite the Quran. And we should do more, not to be satisfied. And that's why also the athar or the hadith of Labid, radiallahu anhu, when he said to the Prophet, he said, the Prophet said something. He did not say, what did he say? But then he said, هذا أوان ذهاب العلم. This is the time when the ilm will be gone. So Labid radiallahu anhu, he said, Ya Rasulullah, O Prophet of Allah, how can the ilm be left? Not of course from the entire ummah, but the ignorance prevail basically. When وَنَحْنُ نَقْرَأُ الْقُرْآنِ, while we're reciting the Quran, وَنُقْرِئُهُ أَبْنَاءَنَا, and we make our children recite the Quran. And al-iqra' is to Not just to recite, they memorize it, they work on it. وأبناؤنا يقرؤون القرآن لأبنائهم, and they would recite it to their children. So it's a continuous thing, and this is something that has to continue. This is the basics of preserving this deen. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he said that to him, he said to him عليه الصلاة والسلام ثكلتك أمك يا لبيد. ثكلتك أمك is not to be used literally. It's like, woe to you, how can you say something like this? هذه اليهود والنصارى معهم التوراة والإنجيل. Here's the Jews and the Christians, they have the Torah and the Injil, لا ينتفعون بها. They don't benefit from it. Right? So the point here is the intifa' bil Quran. To benefit from the Quran, this is the duty upon us to be upon that. And therefore, it's again to start something. And as we heard here, that means we have to finish the entire Quran one day, so that tomorrow we have to make sure that we know the Quran. This is not the case. This is not the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is not how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum understood the Quran. Be patient, have sabr, have patience. But as long as the intentions is, it's a lifetime project. Even if a person is 90 years old, lifetime project. And the niyyah goes beyond one's actions. And if a person dies in that state, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best the intentions. So the lifetime project is this: a person would learn the mandatory knowledge. And this is something that we need now. We're not going to wait the halal and the haram till we finish the entire Quran. Of course, we learn the basics of our knowledge, the obligations to stay away from haram. And this is easy for everyone. This is mandatory for everyone. If you're going for Hajj, you have to learn to make Hajj, fasting, salah, and so on. And asking the people of knowledge. And then learning the Quran from the people of knowledge, also from the ma'thur, from how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum said and understood, and the Quran and the Sunnah, and to be patient with oneself, so that the person he's learning not to have more knowledge, not to give lectures, but to transform our lives, to change our lives. And with the proper way of learning the Quran, this is a daily wird, the daily work, job that a Muslim should be upon, and to follow the ways of the people of knowledge and to implement this in our hearts. Aisha radiallahu anha, when she said, لما نزلت سور من المفصل, when the some surah from Al-Mufassar was revealed first, فيها ذكر الجنة والنار, has in it the mention of the Jannah and the hellfire. What happened to the people? This is what they first get exposed to, the Quran. And then فَلَمَّا ثَابَ النَّاسِ, when the people then return back to their senses, it gave them this awakening, right? And this is how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their heart had this yaqada, this awakening from this ghafla. The matter is a very serious one. فَلَمَّا ثَابَ النَّاسِ, then after that they get to know the ahkam. We're not saying to do it like this and to wait for the ahkam as someone say, let's study first the Quran al-Makki, then we study the Quran al-Madani. No, this is wrong. Or some people even, they want to make the tafsir of the Makki first and then the Madani first. Or making some masahif in the tartib or in the order of how it was revealed. The first surah, then the second surah. This is all bid'ah, innovations in the deen. The Prophet ﷺ, in the arda of Jibreel, when Jibreel ﷺ came down to the Prophet ﷺ in the last year, recited the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ recited to him from the beginning to the end, the way we have the Quran with us today. So that order is from the Prophet ﷺ, and a person should keep it this way. But in the context of studying, of course, this is then to leave it, of course, to those who are teaching. But the point here is to start somehow and to implement it on a daily basis. And the last thing is, as the athar of Abdurrahman al-Sulami, rahimahullah, from the Tabi'een, explaining how they took the Quran from the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud and others. We took it 10 verses at a time. And he did not mean one from 10 to 20. That means few verses at a time. We learn how to recite them, we learn the ahkam of it. And he says, and to act upon it. And then we take the next, and we take the next. And you would find most of the ayat of the Quran, you won't have to, after the dars of the tafsir, oh, I have to apply the ayat today, so give me 4 hours, I have a job to do. It's not like this. It's not like go extend your hand, do this, or walk in this place. Or most of it is in the heart and the way the person conduct himself. So it's an immediate application to the heart and to the actions and to the speech, but to be patient with oneself. Even if a person slips away, forgets. That's why the Quran has to be always reviewed and recited, so that the matter keeps on washing the hearts. Traces of jahiliyyah, traces of things in the heart. Sometimes it's difficult. You have the hose to be as if you have a hose of water, if it's power wash, then it takes it out. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that even in the Quran. If it's weak, right, a person is not awake in it, paying attention or whatever, or sins keeps on coming, it's a constant struggle, purifying oneself, but without missing these ways of learning with the intention of changing our hearts and our lives. And this is how to apply the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ and the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for each and every one of us to learn the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to follow the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us to do so. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad wa sahbihi wasallam. Supposed to have the dars at 6 o'clock, but whoever wants to leave, inshallah, at time, leave. And the dars, inshallah, will start right away and will finish at 6:40, inshallah. Barakallahu feek. But if it's time for the salah, please go ahead, inshallah. Or before that, inshallah. Just one last session today, inshallah.
So when a person like started learning Quran, right, and his intention to finish, but he died, he will be waiting for 2 days.
Now, if someone start reciting the Quran, start learning the Quran, and he died before even the first session, right? As a rule, النية أبلغ من العمل. They say the niyyah is far reaching than the action. The niyyah goes beyond one's action, and the many hadith about this is very clear. So have the intentions that I want to finish the entire Quran and learning, and to take it easy with oneself again, not to make it too stressful hours and hours, even if it's 10 minutes a day, but learning something to implement it in our life. If a person dies before finishing, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the mercy of Allah, he will be given, inshallah ta'ala, the reward of finishing the Quran, because there are evidences like this in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Yeah, and that's why everyone according to their level. Someone that doesn't know how to read and don't spend only time in this, especially, and also they differentiate between those who are young, those who are old. Start learning the meanings, and don't spend so much time in learning the recitation only if you are someone of olden age, so that you would implement the matters of the Quran, and all goes in parallel ways, inshallah.